Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. The Joint Public Service Negotiating Council, JPSNC, on Tuesday ruled out allowing any state to pay less than the consequential adjustment of the minimum wage agreed by the Nigerian government and organized labor. It said the template for the federal civil servants will be used as a baseline to negotiate with state governors. Addressing journalists yesterday at the end of the consultative meeting with state branches of the Public Service Union in Abuja, the General Secretary of the JPSNC, Mr. Alade Lawal, said the agreements the national body had with the federal government would be the minimum for the states, stressing that while some will pay higher, no state will pay less. This, however, portends a crisis, as the governors had said at the end of their meeting last month that there could be no uniformity of pay, that states' consequential adjustment would depend on the ability to pay. So it appears that a storm might be brewing here if, terms are not met. The NLC is quite adamant that the federal government's negotiation forms the baseline, the barest minimum that they're willing to accept. And we just hope that the meetings which are going to be convened and will hopefully conclude by December this year go smoothly. If not, then we have that dreaded word, strike, to contend with.
Well, in this particular instance, the organized labor, speaking under the umbrella of the Public Service Joint Negotiation Council, is responding to the decision, to the position of the governors, as they made it clear at their last meeting, that yes, they agree that the benchmark is 30,000 new national minimum wage, which is a matter of law. But where the disagreement is with regard to consequential adjustment from levels 1 to 17. And the states are saying that they are not bound by what has been agreed with the federal government. The negotiation of the consequential adjustment with the federal government went on and on and on, but eventually they arrived at something from 12% to the lowest percentage for levels 15 to 17. Now, the Ministry of Labor and Employment, through the minister himself, has said that, look, with regard to consequential adjustment, the state governments are not bound by what the federal government has negotiated. And every labor union in the various states should go and negotiate with the governors. And the governor's position is that that consequential adjustment will be determined by their ability to pay. And that is not necessarily a matter of law. It's not covered by the bill.
There's discretion.
Yeah, it's something that can be negotiated, as a follow-up action. And the Public Service Joint Negotiating Council, itself, admitted at its meeting in Enugu that it was going to come up with a template on the basis of which the state chapters could negotiate with the states. So is the Joint Negotiating Council now telling us that the template that they promised, which they did not come up with, what they have decided is that even the states cannot go below the consequential adjustment ratios agreed with the federal government. So I think there may be problems there, because if indeed we're running a federation, if indeed, as they claim, we are a federal system, I think that, no state should be forced to pay, consequential adjustment that they cannot afford. This same Joint Negotiating Council had said before now that it was going to take a look at the revenue, of the various states to see whether indeed the states were telling the truth about what they can afford. And you said yes, everything should be made public. Now they've turned around and they are trying to impose the negotiation over consequential adjustment of salaries level 1 to 17 on the state governments. I think it will create problems, and I think that the organized labor at the federal level should not take this kind of hard line. I think that they should encourage, as they themselves have said earlier, their state chapters to engage in dialogue and negotiation with their state governments.
Absolutely. I don't think I could have said it better myself, because any practice of true federalism would have involved states from the very beginning. You can't have a certain standard and expect people to be able to achieve it, and if they can't, go after them in a way that's still not going to reach the end goal. And fact of the matter is, there are states that cannot pay the new minimum wage, and we need to go about this in a way that is best for the people of those states so that they can actually benefit in one way or another. And coming at them and turning around on things that you have said is just not the way to really go about it.
Yes, that mass retrenchment that we managed to avoid at the federal level, we don't want to see it at state level if the NLC insists. Already they're saying that states' houses of assembly should impeach any governor that does not pay, the minimum wage and the consequential adjustment. So it's
and we said they don't have such powers.
Yes,
because in any case, the houses of assembly are more or less in the pockets of the governors.
So it's not going to happen anyway. But we don't need that kind of tone as the negotiations begin. But we keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best. The Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has ordered the suspension of the military exercise tagged Operation Positive Identification, which the Nigerian Army began nationwide last Friday. Justice Rowanu Aikawa ordered the Nigerian Army and Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, to maintain status quo pending the determination of a suit filed by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana. At the hearing of the matter on Tuesday, the Nigerian Army and Buratai, who were listed as first and second respondents in the matter, were absent. But Falana informed the court that they were duly served and that he had spoken with their counsel on a probable date to commence substantial hearing of the matter. Last week, Buratai, while defending the Army's decision before a House of Representatives committee, said the exercise would focus on intelligence rather than deployment of troops or mounting roadblocks across the country. Well, Solicitor General of Nigeria, Dayo Akpata, has said he wants to defend this matter personally, and himself and the petitioner, Femi Falana SAN, have agreed on that, and the court adjourned based on that agreement. So it's a suspension. It hasn't been taken off the table. They're to maintain status quo, and I hope that they do, because the Nigerian federal government and its arms haven't had the best record of doing so. So let's hope that they, in fact, do suspend this. Pretty horrendous idea.
Yeah, it's just...
Well, I mean, many people kicked against Operation Positive Identification and the over-involvement of the military, or the Nigerian Army specifically, in internal security operations. And on the basis of all of this, Femi Falana SAN went to a Lagos High Court to ask the court to declare the, Operation Positive Identification unconstitutional, illegal, null, and void. And he cited Section 35 of the 1999 Constitution, dealing with the right of every individual to liberty, to freedom of movement. He also cited Article 6 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. Now, the matter went to court, and, he had sued the Nigerian Army, the Chief of Army Staff, and the Attorney General of the Federation. When the matter came up on Tuesday, that is yesterday, it was only the Attorney General of the Federation that sent a counsel to represent him. The Nigerian Army and the Chief of Army Staff snubbed the court. Now, what the judge now decided is to say, well, all parties involved should revert to the status quo ante bellum, which means that the Nigerian Army cannot go ahead with Operation Positive Identification, since there was a matter before the court which needs to be determined. And until that matter is determined, Nigerian Army will have to suspend the operation. Because, as the judge rightly observed, since the exercise is slated for November 1 to 23, if they don't show up in court and you take the matter later, it will be no more than an academic exercise. Yeah. So I think the preliminary ruling that has been given by the court is perfectly in order to ensure that the basic issues are addressed. Now, what are the issues at stake? One, can the Nigerian Army be involved in internal security operations? Now, Falana argues that under Section 215, it is the duty of the police to take charge of, internal security operations, and that it is not right for the military to be allowed to usurp the functions of the police. And that's the position of a lot of Nigerians, that, the army cannot usurp police functions because their rules of engagement are clearly different from that of the police. He argues that under Section 217, subsection 1 of the Constitution. Yes, the military can be invited to come and get involved, but only to aid civil authorities, not to take over the job of the police. And that's the main argument that many other Nigerians have been pushing. And I think it's important, for the development of our jurisprudence, for all of this to be determined. Because in the past, when the military got involved in civil action, in internal security operations on the basis of directives by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, there were issues. Nigerians remember the case of Uti massacre, the role of the military in the Jos crisis, and also the objection to Operation Crocodile Smile 3 by Ijaw youths, who accused the military of violating the rights and dignity of persons in the southern part of the country. So, however, beyond all of this, the military, I think, has not handled this matter well. As I said Saturday, they were saying, well, the Operation Positive Identification that Nigerians are reacting to is the one from one company called BRICS Company. Right. They call it a fictitious company. They say their own operation is intelligence-driven. How? Who is behind this BRICS Company? Right? And why did they react late after the Senate and the House of Representatives and every other civil society group had protested?
Yeah, so we'll take a short break and we'll be back with more on the news headlines. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still on the news headlines. The front section of the 6-story building gutted by fire on Tuesday at Balogun Market in Nigeria has collapsed, killing a policeman. A part of the 6-story building located at 43 Martin Street, Lagos Island, collapsed around 8:30 p.m. on Tuesday, just as firemen were battling to contain the inferno. The policeman had been controlling the surging crowd when a part of the building came down on him. A special advisor to the governor of Lagos Central Business District said the policeman died in hospital. This is tragic news, to die in the course of his duties. May his soul rest in peace. I mean, initially the reports were like there was terrible damage, loss of millions of naira worth of property, but thankfully no casualties. So this is really sad.
It is.
Yeah, I think what happened yesterday is very sad. The authorities have not been able to establish either the source or the cause of the fire. So I think that investigations would still have to be conducted. The fire started around 9 a.m. and we were told that as at 8:30 p.m., that was about the time when the front, section of the building, the 6-story building at 43 Martin Street, Lagos, collapsed. And then this casualty was recorded. But from what we know so far about that particular incident, I think that, the Lagos State Emergency Management Authority, LASEMA, acted too quickly to beat his chest that he did a good job. I think that they dropped the ball. We were told that the fire service arrived early, within 30 minutes of the reporting of the fire outbreak. But, what was shown in the videos that we have seen is a case of an ill-prepared fire service, unable to make any difference. The, inferno continued unabated. The affected persons who had shops there, were even allowed to ingress and egress out of the building, throwing their goods out of their various shops or supermarkets or whatever. There was no determination to even ensure that, lives and properties were protected. The most scandalous of the videos that I saw was that of a, state official, a fire service, a fireman, using buckets, to take water from what looks like, like a reservoir or whatever, and carrying one bucket of water and throwing it on blazing fire. And I said, this looks really, really strange. It means that we're truly not prepared for handling emergencies. And I hope that those footages will be shown to the present governor of Lagos State, and he will realize, that, managing emergencies should be one of his priorities. And then again, the policeman, that died. May his soul rest in perfect peace. We were told that he was trying to control the crowd. Yes. He was trying to push people back. Now, there's this thing in Nigeria these days, and I think possibly this is the effect of these phones, these smartphones that everybody has in his pocket. When there is a tragedy or there is an incident, or let's say an accident, you see that people are not even interested in either helping or even taking care of their own security by staying away from danger. Everybody is interested in carrying some miserable phone and recording what is going on. We have reached a point where people see tragedy and accidents as entertainment.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a level of cynicism, that speaks to a lot, that is happening within our country. But I hope, as I've said, that an investigation will be conducted, and what we know so far, will be addressed in terms of how to manage emergencies. And then, of course, the other issue is about the building code. In other parts of the world, they have a building code, that is strictly adhered to. And Nigeria also has a national building code. Our national building code is observed more in the breach, because when you have a building, part of it makes provisions for fire regulations, for alarms, for all kinds of things. But we have these incidents happening all the time, indicating that the building code in Nigeria is actually not respected.
First of all, rest in peace to the police officer that did lose his life trying to help people to stay away from this fire. And seeing that footage is absolutely tragic, but it's more worrying to know that we really are not prepared for this scale of an emergency. First of all, 30 minutes is not rapid response, and I think that's a starting point, especially in such a busy and robust part of the city. 30 minutes is certainly not rapid response for getting to that fire. Secondly, this has just shown us that our fire respondents are not prepared for fires, and really and truly on any scale. If we have footage of firemen using buckets and throwing it across to put out the fire, then we have a serious problem on our hands, and the government can't take this lightly. There has to be a huge sensitization project across the entire state and probably even country on emergencies and response to emergencies, because this is a disaster that could have also been a lot worse than it was. And really and truly, we were lucky that it didn't even end up on a much larger scale than it did. However, this is still as bad as it can possibly get, and this is not anything that should be taken lightly in any way whatsoever. We have a serious problem on our hands here.
The other point to add is the need for synergy among the various government agencies. Mm-hmm. In some other countries, the Air Force will have been called in. A few weeks ago, we were celebrating the fact that the Nigerian Air Force was having its first female firefighter pilot, right? And the Air Force is just in Ikeja, almost like a stone throw away from Balogun Market. Why was the Air Force not called in? From what we have seen in Southern California, that job was done majorly by the Air Force. You had the ground forces of fire officials, but you also had the Air Force supporting them to put out fires. And, that was, probably the worst fires that they had wildfires that they had in California. So where was the Air Force? Where were the other agencies? We didn't see that at play. It shows that we still have a long way to go.
Yes, the whole point of having equipment and personnel is to work in concert and not in silos, like you said. And also the primitive behavior just has to stop. There shouldn't be buckets being used to put out a huge inferno like that. It's ridiculous. Now to the UK, where British Prime Minister Boris Johnson will formally announce a general election this morning, urging voters to back him and promising to get Brexit done in the next few weeks, in quotes. The 12th of December election was agreed by Parliament last week, ending 2 years of deep disagreement over Brexit that has sapped investors' faith in the stability of the world's fifth largest economy and damaged Britain's international standing. The outcome of the vote is hard to predict, with the immediate question of Britain's exit from the European Union scrambling voters' traditional loyalties and giving smaller rivals a chance to challenge the two biggest parties, Johnson's Conservatives and left-of-centre Labour Party. After dissolving Parliament and paying a formal visit to Queen Elizabeth shortly, Johnson will return to his Downing Street residence to announce the election. He will launch his party's campaign at a rally in the West Midlands later today. Well, this is about to be a battle royale. I'm looking forward to it. It's like so exciting. I'm getting my popcorn now. Now, the latest scandal waiting to happen is Boris Johnson being accused of sitting on a Russia report into UK election meddling and not wanting that released until after the election. What does he have to hide?
Well, I mean, the Downing Street has said that will not happen until after the elections. They've denied any kind of interference because it looks like, those who are saying the report should be made public. The report had been available since March 2019. So why are they calling for it being made public now? So you see that all of this is tied to politics. Now, the story says the election campaign will start, yes, officially. But the campaign started immediately, December 12 was agreed upon as a date for the elections. Certain things we know. One, that this has been the shortest session of Parliament since 1928. In 1928, Parliament adjourned within 10 days. This Parliament has been able to sit for only 19 days. We even had a case of a speaker who replaced John Beko, who presided for just about 2 days. 62-year-old Sir Lindsay
Hoyle.
Hoyle. Yes, and then, of course, now with this, by today, every parliamentary seat will be vacant. The ministers will remain in place. But as I said previously, what I like is that, look, this campaign is around issues. Boris Johnson is still boasting, as he has always done, that he will deliver Brexit. The Labour Party, through Jeremy Corbyn, is insisting that there will be change. The kind of change that, he says Boris Johnson will not be able to deliver on NHS and what is it called, education and other issues. And in any case, that he would promote the interest of the poor. In response to that, Boris Johnson says, look, this man is another Stalin. He's going to go after, the kulaks of 21st century United Kingdom. And then you have the SNP, the Scottish National Party, with Nicola Sturgeon saying that, our determination is to stop Brexit. Then you have the Green Party saying we will spend more money, about £2.2 billion, on climate change, or climate action. So you see all of this.
And the Lib Dems, don't forget the Lib Dems.
Yes, the Lib Dems also, they want to work on health, mental health crisis. So you see each of the parties engaging the public with ideas, right? And I think it's the kind of thing we would like to see in Nigeria, where oftentimes we have about 90 political parties, but you don't know the difference among these 90 political parties.
Absolutely. And I think the way they've come out with quite a lot of oomph, I think it's also getting the public on the kind of buzz that we would like to see the UK public on before the elections, which is contradictory to what you and Nightwind were saying last week, where we were saying that we don't think a lot of people are going to come out for these elections because of everything that's gone on.
I didn't say that.
No.
Oh, I thought you did.
You
Did you say?
I said it would be, yes, I said it may affect the turnout.
Oh, I was saying that I don't think a lot of people...
And that even if you do come out, it will be really grim coming out to vote in the winter.
But now it looks like there does seem to be a lot more buzz.
A published research by Oxford University, has said that it is not proven that people will not come out because it is winter, and particularly because of the issues at stake.
Yes, but we all know the data on High Street.
Yeah.
People's shops suffer during the winter. People don't like to go out, which is why I said that.
Yeah, but
so it's not the most pleasant to have.
It is not the most pleasant.
Yeah, but that does not mean they won't come out.
But the biggest threat is that many of the polling units will not be